Tonight, the life and legacy of Queen Elizabeth II, Britain's longest-serving monarch, dies at the age of 96. The Queen passed peacefully at her Balmoral Castle in Scotland, the official announcement from Buckingham Palace, her family rushing to be by her side, including her son, the new King Charles. CBS's Charlie D'Agata is at Buckingham Palace as thousands gather to mourn.
Queen Elizabeth II was the rock on which modern Britain was built.
The unlikely Queen, from a 19-year-old auto mechanic during World War II to her 70-year reign. CBS's Mark Phillips has her amazing life story.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service.
The global reaction. Condolences pour in from leaders around the world, and her iconic encounters with American presidents, first as princess, then as queen, dancing and riding through 70 years of history. And finally, the Queen's legacy. We talked to former Prime Minister John Major, and we look back at her life, not just as monarch, but mother, her devotion to her family.
This is the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell, reporting from the nation's capital.
Good evening to our viewers in the West, and thank you for joining us on this historic Thursday night. The world is mourning Queen Elizabeth II, who died this afternoon at age 96, surrounded by family at her summer home in Scotland. Earlier in the day, Buckingham Palace announced that Her Majesty, who ruled over the Commonwealth for a record 70 years, was placed under medical supervision. Her doctors were concerned about her health. Family rushed to her side. In accordance with the royal line of succession, her oldest son, Charles, immediately became king, which puts her grandson, Prince William, next in line to the throne, followed by William's eldest son, 9-year-old Prince George. Just before her death was announced, a double rainbow appeared over Buckingham Palace as a crowd gathered. President Biden visited the British Embassy in Washington late today and left a message in a condolence book. In a statement, he said Queen Elizabeth was a stateswoman of unmatched dignity and constancy who deepened the bedrock alliance between the United Kingdom and the United States. We have a team of reporters covering the death of a queen described as a stalwart leader, and CBS's Charlie D'Agata will start us off from Buckingham Palace. And good evening, Charlie. What's the scene like there?
Okay. Good evening to you, Norah. There has been an outpouring of grief and emotion here at Buckingham Palace. Thousands of people have gathered to pay tribute despite the rain. And although this is a moment that we've all been expecting, it's hard to imagine this country without her. The official notice hung on the gates of Buckingham Palace in accordance with royal protocol. The Queen died peacefully in Balmoral this afternoon. Senior members of the royal family raced to be at her bedside today at Balmoral Castle, her summer home in Scotland. Prince Charles, now King Charles, was already there. Her grandson, Prince William, who came without Kate, and the Queen's other children made their way to the royal residence. Prince Harry traveled by himself and came later. Meghan remained behind in London. On the Queen's death, His Majesty, King Charles III, issued the statement, "We mourn profoundly the passing of a cherished sovereign and a much-loved mother." The new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, said the country is devastated.
Queen Elizabeth II was the rock on which modern Britain was built.
The Queen was last pictured meeting with the Prime Minister on Tuesday and standing on her own, smiling by the fire, cane in hand. The 96-year-old monarch was hospitalized last October, suffering from what the palace called episodic mobility problems, forced to cut back on most public engagements since, only appearing at a few of the events during her Platinum Jubilee, marking 70 years on the throne. She has slowed down considerably, appearing more frail in recent weeks with a significant weight loss. And the death of Prince Philip in April last year, her husband of more than 70 years, paid reminder that her reign was moving into its final, inevitable chapter. Tonight, the country mourns not just the passing of a national figure, but part of its very identity, the only monarch most have ever known. Now, the Queen is expected to remain in Scotland through the weekend before she's brought down here. King Charles will make his first televised address tomorrow and finalize the plans for his mother's funeral. Norah?
Charlie D'Agata outside Buckingham Palace, thank you. The 70-year reign of Queen Elizabeth has come during an ever-changing world through peace and prosperity, wars and financial hardships. Through it all, the Queen remained forever devoted to the British people. CBS's Mark Phillips has her incredible life story.
For a woman who was not born to be queen, the public outpouring of affection for Elizabeth during the celebration of her 70th year on the throne was a tribute to her and to how well she had done her job. Seemed to highlight the emotional gap between the Queen and her people. Elizabeth did much to repair the damage with a single bow of the head to the passing coffin of a popular princess. There would be other challenges, one of the most serious centering around the wife of one of Diana's sons. When Prince Harry's biracial American wife, Meghan Markle, complained of mistreatment by palace officials, the couple renounced the royal life and moved to California. When Elizabeth's husband, Prince Philip, died, she was left alone. In 7 decades on the throne, Elizabeth redefined the monarchy, remade it for a more modern, less deferential age. And in the process, she became not just the Queen of Great Britain, she became, in a way, Queen of the world. Mark Phillips, CBS News, London.
The Queen's extraordinary global impact can be seen in the heartfelt messages from world leaders to ordinary people who felt a deep connection to the beloved monarch. CBS's Holly Williams is at Windsor Castle tonight, just outside London, where crowds have gathered to express their grief.
As the Union Jack was lowered in London and all over the United Kingdom, crowds began to gather at the golden gates of Buckingham Palace.
The minister said she never retired from her duty to her country. The Queen had a special friendship with America and more than a few memorable moments with U.S. presidents. That story in 60 seconds. At times during the reign of Queen Elizabeth, it seemed Britain and the U.S. weren't an ocean apart, but close neighbors. The Queen visited 117 countries, but met with more U.S. presidents than any other foreign head of state. Here's CBS's Major Garrett.
Harry Truman was the first to host Elizabeth, then Princess, saying the royal couple, quote, captured the hearts.
The countless people who met Queen Elizabeth were urged to call her Your Majesty, but a select few knew her as Mum. We get more on this from CBS's Roxana Saberi.
She served as a monarch to millions and mother to 4. Her devotion to her family and country, a model for her people. Amanda Foreman is a historian and author.
Queen Elizabeth II as a mother had some unique challenges. She had to be away for many months at a time, and yet she took her duties as a mother very seriously.
She was often called detached.
Finally tonight, a special remembrance of the 70-year reign of a world leader. Tonight, the most spectacular image, a double rainbow over Buckingham Palace that appeared just moments before the royal family announced her passing as crowds gathered to say goodbye. The rainbow, to some, a sign, its long arc a reminder of her long reign and her lasting legacy. Not just as monarch, but as mother and grandmother, a wife of 73 years, a lover of her corgis and horses. Her greatest devotion was to the service of the Commonwealth, even in her final days, working to welcome the new Prime Minister. Frail but smiling broadly. In her long life, she no doubt saw her fair share of tumult and triumph, but she will always be remembered for her strength on the world stage, as iconic and stable as Buckingham Palace itself. And that is tonight's CBS Evening News. We'll see you tomorrow night from London. Good night.